Bad joke.
Welcome to the Jackson Cloud. I'm Jamin.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Olivia.
And we're continuing through Revelation. Guys, we finished a mini-series within our series, upon which we talked about the 7 churches.
So wait, we're only at episode 437 in Revelation?
It certainly has not been that long.
It's probably been
436 maybe. But.
Okay.
All right, so we're moving into chapter 4. And
wow, last time I checked, we were in chapter 1.
I know, I told you. We've been.
That was like yesterday.
We've been moving pretty quick, and I could stop and describe a bunch of little things throughout this chapter, but I won't. Instead, I'm gonna do what John
Next
does.
chapter, he's going to come back to this chapter, then explain those things.
What I'm going to do instead is take all of what John does in this chapter, because he throws, like he always does, bunch of different key verses into a blender and then hits the button. So, this is where John enters into heaven. What?
So what, he makes it into a smoothie?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a Revelation smoothie. Smoothie of Revelation.
How did we get here?
I don't know.
Blender?
Oh, yeah,
Smoothie?
right. After this I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. Which this feels a little repetitive, because John already started at the beginning and was like, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. And then it's like, hang on, I got to say something to you 7 churches. Okay, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. That's kind of, feels like we're restarting all over again. So now he says, I saw a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice, which I had heard speaking to me like a trumpet, which is who?
Jesus.
And it sounded like a trumpet because why?
He sounds like a trumpet.
At the trumpet call.
I regret asking. Never mind. We did a whole episode on Jesus' voice sounding like a trumpet. But yeah, when you think of trumpets and all the different meanings that are behind it, both in the Bible and still into today, it's almost like a war cry, getting your attention, royalty entering, things like that. So I was in the Spirit. I heard speaking to me like a trumpet. So Jesus said, come up here and I will show you what must take place after this. This is not exactly a unique moment in the Bible. There have been other times where prophets have been taken into heaven to catch a glimpse of things that are to come. Can you guys think of any particular stories offhand? I feel like a lot of these land into like obscure Bible passage territory. It's usually in the historical books in the middle, which I don't want to call obscure, but people usually read the beginning of the Bible a lot in the New Testament, and the middle, let's be honest, a lot of people just
skip over it.
I didn't get that far. So, can you think of any stories where people are taken up into heaven?
Elijah.
Yeah. Would we see Elijah entering into a throne room in that sense? Because in this case, it's like John's taken up in the Spirit.
Well, doesn't he not? He doesn't really come back, so that's...
Right.
Well, but he does visit for a moment with Jesus.
Right.
But I meant like his body does not come back. Like he
Right.
visits in spirit, but he doesn't physically come back. So it's hard for us to like get an account of like, this is what I saw when I was there, because he never explains that.
But the Transfiguration, where Elijah does show up for a moment, is an interesting way to think about kind of like entering into heaven in a sort of way,
Because like, in that sense, then, would you say that Moses did too?
What?
When he went up to the mountain and went into God's presence?
There are legends that Moses never died in Jewish culture, but the Bible tells us he died, so you'd have to choose.
Well, but
there's also legends he had horns.
That's cool. But no, like that's a sense where he would go up and then come back.
Yeah, I mean the Bible just tells us that he died, but some people read into it that...
No, but I mean like because he went up and got the 10 Commandments and came back. Like he went into God's presence and then came back.
Oh, you mean like before he dies?
Correct. I'm talking about like...
Well, yeah. So let's remember ancient context, mountains are places where heaven and earth meet, right? Because you run into God on mountains all the time. You run into God. Abraham runs into God on the mountain where he's about to sacrifice his one and only son, whom he doesn't have to sacrifice because God has a sacrifice instead. God will provide the sacrifice, what Abraham says. You run into God on Mount Sinai. I think it's Ezekiel who says that Eden was on a mountain. Transfiguration, that's at a mountain. Jerusalem is also known as Mount Zion. So mountains are thought to be like sacred spaces because it's like kind of walking up into earthly, heavenly territory, hybrid type thing. So when Jesus goes up on the Mount of Transfiguration and sees Moses and Elijah, there is this kind of sense that he's entering into a heavenly atmosphere type moment, because he sees people who belong in heaven showing up, right?
Right. But that's what I was meaning, was like, if you're thinking of in the Elijah version where he gets taken up in a chariot to heaven, you know, is the other times where people have been able to meet with God, is that also considered like going into heaven's presence or God's presence? Would that count as well, I guess?
Probably not in the same sense as John, because John says that once I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven with one seated on the throne. So for John, first off, he's on Patmos, so he's not walking up any mountains, at least not any giant mountains. And he's he is taken up in the Spirit, entering into actual heaven. So it's not just like a physical location, but like a spiritual location. This is more like Paul when he says, you know, I was taken up into the third or fourth heaven. Paul's talking about like though he says in the body or out of body, I don't know. You know, is that the same with John? We did an episode on that. Was John in the Spirit? You can check out that episode as well for more thoughts on that. But yeah, other moments where people kind of entered into heaven. I think of, what was that prophet's name? Is it Micaiah? He's the one I like to talk about a lot. Micaiah was the, let me just make sure that I have the name right, because someone might go look it up. Micaiah. Fire.
You mean Micah?
Isn't it Micaiah?
Kings 22. There it is, yeah. Kings 22. Oh, sorry, right. First Kings 22. It's like, why is it not showing up? Micaiah. Dang it. All right, there we go. Micaiah was one of the prophets. And since Olivia cares so much, his name is pronounced, we don't know. It's not written down here. Okay. Can you, is the way that it's written? No, forget it. Okay, Micaiah was a story where he saw the Lord sitting on his throne and all the host of heaven standing beside him on his right and his left. So he's taken into the divine council where God is on his throne and all these other spiritual beings are there with him, all the host of heaven. And then he watches like an explanation of what is to come, okay? God's decided that King Ahab needs to die, and the conversation between all the spiritual beings then is, okay, how is he going to die? Like, how do we complete this plan as God has declared? To which then all these spiritual beings come up with an answer. One spirit comes up to God and says, well, here's an idea, I'll do this. And God says, yeah, that'll work, let's do that. So God then goes about carrying out the spiritual being's plan, and King Ahab dies. So like that's a story right there where a prophet is brought into heaven and then sees that which is to come. That's just one example. Any other examples like that come to mind? Again, like I said, they're probably the more obscure books that we don't always... Not obscure, I'm using the wrong word.
Less read.
Less read, yes.
Less publicized.
Yeah. Well, stories like that. You have these stories where things like that happen. Isaiah 6, 1 through 7. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings. So he saw all of this. That was, in a sense, being carried into God's throne room. You also have Isaiah 40, 40 verse 1 through 2. I don't quite see where that passage is, as this person just referenced. But yeah, with that being said, you have these occasional stories. So here's the prophet John being taken into God's throne room, just like has happened before, to see that which is to happen from the spiritual realm declared over the physical realm, right? That's a lot of what Revelation is going to be about from now on. At once I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne. And he who sat there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian. Yeah.
No, you're good.
You looked like you were going to say something.
Nope.
Jasper and carnelian. Any idea why?
Who's Jasper and Carnelian?
These are gems. Come on, Minecraft. Think Minecraft. Is Jasper in Minecraft?
No, neither of those gems are.
What? Come on, Minecraft. You let us down.
I mean, it might be in one of the mods, but even then, most of the mods that I've played don't even have those.
Well, these echo some Old Testament passages in Exodus 28, Ezekiel 1. You've got these kinds of things mentioned having to do with the breastplate of the high priest. Now, we've talked about that, right? Yeah, we talked about Jesus being like the high priest, and he's wearing garb that reminds you of kind of the high priest type thing. So you've got jasper and carnelian, these kinds of gems here. You also have around the throne is a rainbow. Rainbow, what does that bring back to mind? Anything?
The promise in the flood?
Yeah, I mean, for most people, the flood is like instant, right? But Ezekiel 1:28 also said that the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord is like a rainbow. So I feel like that might be similar to the Jewish word Shekinah. I feel like that was supposed to have like almost like a, if I remember right, like an aura to it. I feel like a rainbow would be the best way to explain it, that you could see God's presence, this Shekinah glory, if you will. So when you have Ezekiel saying that God's presence, it's like the brightness and it's like the rainbow. Well, again, okay, so John's pulling from past experiences of prophets who have seen all kinds of things in God's presence. And he's saying, yeah, I was in God's presence. I went to heaven. All these things were there, right? It's like the ultimate revelation, the ultimate prophecy of prophecies. So a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. Again, more shiny gems we're throwing out there, like
Emeralds in
jasper
Minecraft.
and carnelian. There you go. But emerald becomes a part
It's
of it.
even
too.
rare in Minecraft.
It's true. Not when she plays. She knows.
I mean, if you're trading with villagers, yeah, it's not rare. But if you're trying to find it, it's more rare.
I mean, they did just make it a lot more common.
Did they really?
Yeah, with the big update.
These are the side conversations I live for right here.
With the mountains being more common, like if you find a mountain with the size of them now, like finding emeralds a lot easier.
Yeah, Casey, get with the program.
They even like, if you've got a stony mountain, then like a stony peaks, then you can find them right on the surface.
Touche. I have not played the vanilla version of 1.18 yet.
You should, it's really cool.
I'm doing a modded vanilla version of 1.18.
Okay, you can't say modded and vanilla. Vanilla literally means unmodded.
It's the bare bones of vanilla, but you have to earn XP and level up.
I regret ever bringing up Minecraft right now. Just
I don't think you did. Oh, no, you did.
I did the
Yes,
first
you
time.
did.
You brought it up this time.
Well, it's because you mentioned emeralds, which that was a gem in Minecraft. So,
Well, it's another gem mentioned right here.
what is it?
Jasper, carnelian, emerald. When we think of shiny, what would you call this? Minerals? Is that what these things are?
Gemstones.
Rocks.
Gemstones.
Well, when you think of those things, You can think of like,
Let me guess, you're going to mention diamonds next.
not yet, no. Well, you can think of almost like divine beings in general. Like we've talked about them being shiny, sort of, Exodus 28, I think, there's a breastpiece of judgment, and on that we've got 4 rows of stones, sardius, topaz, carbuncle. I love that word. Emerald, sapphire, diamond, jacinth, agate, amethyst, beryl, onyx, jasper, all in a gold filigree. So you've got all these, whatever this breastpiece of judgment is, it's carrying, it's like
about 6 of those are in Minecraft.
Yeah, well, it's the priest's garment, and it's carrying like all these things that, when you think of it, you should be thinking of how he's relating, between God and us, and the fact that it's called the breastpiece of judgment in that particular one. What is Revelation, but the high priest Jesus wearing, if you will, in some sense, a breastpiece of judgment right here. So seeing some of those things pop up again is not entirely out of whack. But you even see Satan before he fell, when he was a cherubim in the Garden of Eden, if you will. Satan was a cherubim verse. Ezekiel 28. Ha! Shocking. It's the same passage I was just in. Ezekiel 28:14. When Satan is described, every precious stone was your covering. Sardius, topaz, diamond, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphire, emerald, carbuncle. Crafted in gold were your settings and your engravings. So you see him, in a sense, like he was an anointed guardian cherub, is what Ezekiel says. Placed on the holy mountain of God, which he also says was Eden, the garden of God. So in this garden mountain, you have Satan before he fell, wearing all the shiny gems and doing the work of God, just like the priest and later is seen wearing the shiny gems, doing the work of God. So with all that being said, part of the reason you're seeing these shiny gems show up here is because we're talking about divine being, sacred space, heavenly court. It's not shocking that we're coming across the same kind of themes that we've seen throughout the Bible. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clothed in white garments.
I do have one question real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think all the gems had a specific enchantmental property? That's why he had one of each one?
You want to take this, Olivia?
Gold is the most enchantmentable.
Whoa! Not the direction I was going. Minecraft out here. No! Shiny stuff equal shiny being. Oh, you guys are the worst. Okay.
I like how it went from these are the side conversations I live for to you guys are the worst.
Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders, clothed in white garments with golden crowns on their head. From the throne came flashes of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder. That right there, that takes us back into previous verses as well. Exodus 19, when Moses goes up on Sinai, there's smoke and the whole mountain trembled, and there's the trumpet. There's a thick cloud. So you've got, again, these kinds of things. You also have Jesus, when God says, "This is my son with whom I'm well pleased." Some people heard God say that from the sky. But other people heard, anyone remember?
Thunder?
Thunder. Yeah, so like God's voice kind of sounding like thunder, things like that. On the throne were burning 7 torches of fire. Want to take a guess?
Like the churches.
Well, the churches are, were the 7 lampstands.
Yeah.
It's actually not what the 7 torches of fire are, though. You want to take another guess?
What were the 7 lampstands representing again?
Oh, the churches. You were
well,
right on that.
no. The churches were like
the light of Jesus to the
Stars?
world.
I don't know.
The sun?
I thought it had to do with something else too. I don't remember.
Well, the 7 torches of fire are the 7 spirits of God. Take a guess as to what that is.
The 7 spirits, aren't they the ones that protect the churches?
Yeah,
Assigned to
so
the churches?
so it could be two different ways. We could say they're the 7 angels assigned to the churches, or we could also say, I think, that these are like the 7 archangels of like Jewish literature, something like that. A lot of people, again, tend to go the route of these are the 7 Holy Spirits, which we talked about this in our episode on the 7 spirits of God, but that doesn't.
I don't remember talking about 7 Holy Spirits.
Well, remember our non-nitty?
Oh, I do
Father,
remember that.
Son, and Holy Spirit, and Holy Spirit, and Holy Spirit, and Holy Spirit, and Holy Spirit. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So some people have taken Zechariah and they have said that just as, well, no, is it Zechariah? No. They're talking about Isaiah, I think, where the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of understanding, the spirit of, like, there's a list of 7 defining terms about the Holy Spirit. Some say that, like, John is just grabbing that and saying the 7-fold Spirit of God. Which he could be, because John does pull from a lot of places and not always fully explained, but it makes more sense to me here. Angels are spirits. They're ministering spirits. They're spiritual beings. It would not be weird for John just to be saying, like, before God's throne we're like 7 mighty archangels, you know, like, sure, why not? Why wouldn't they be there?
Well, would it also be like the fruits of the Spirit?
Is
No,
that
I think you're
7?
thinking the fruit of the loom.
That's
Love,
only 5.
joy, peace, patience,
but
kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It's 9.
You count to 9 weird.
I do count weird. Yeah, I can't put that finger up. See, it doesn't. I got to go to pinky before I can get to ring finger. Anyways,
Weird.
what were we talking about?
7.
Right. But the fruit of the Spirit is character grown in us, not so much like specific spirits, if you will. But again, neither was what Isaiah is saying, like that there's 7 Holy Spirits put on Jesus. Rather, makes sense to me. John's seeing 7 especially mighty spirits before God's throne. Why not? Why not? I think what throws us off, though, in our culture, we're not used to calling angels spirits. And that's why we don't catch it. Whereas in ancient times, it was not that weird to describe a angelic being as like I saw a spirit type thing. Not a phantom, not a ghost, just a spiritual being type thing. So, yeah. And then before the throne, there was, as it were, a sea of glass. Now, there's 2 episodes we're going to go back.
Who called that one?
In this paragraph. I want to talk about the 24 elders more, because that sounds weird, right? And then I want to talk about the sea of glass. So we're actually, we're going to get into those 2 episodes next. But I thought we just kind of like look over that whole paragraph right now and recognize like this conglomerate of everything that you would expect to find in God's divine space, where he lives and is the head of all things, the God of gods, King of kings, Lord of lords, with all the spiritual heavenly hosts of heaven all around him here. Like, this is where John's been taken up to. And as he's taken up there, he sees and is quoting all these different scriptures that have gone before him about the kinds of things that everyone has expected they would see in God's divine space. His voice sounded like a trumpet, just like Sinai. There's a throne there. There's shiny gems there. There's a rainbow reminiscent of God's glory. There's 24 elders. You have the divine council in session. There's white garments, which we did an episode about that. That's the kind of heavenly things that angels wear and resurrected Christians wear. Golden crowns on their head. Again, they have authority that's been extended to them. Flash of the lightning, rumbles, peals of thunder. Those are from theophanies of the past where God shows up and you hear and see these kinds of things at Sinai with 7 archangels or spirits of God and a sea of glass before him. Like all these things, sea of glass like crystal, like all these things are shiny, brilliant, beautiful, amazing. It's weird to us when we read it, like, is that what heaven looks like? But like, like these are some of like the most powerful, beautiful things we can think of on the earth. Between shiny gems and like, who still doesn't get caught off guard by like a crazy storm every once in a while, right? It may not be a thunderstorm outside, but when weather acts up, we all feel it. So
It just happens every 7 years. It's fine.
What?
7 years ago, almost to this day, we had like a huge blizzard of like 8 to 10 inches. And it was 7 years ago, like in February.
God works in sevens. There's an episode on that too. You can check out.
Jamie will link it right here.
Nope, I'm not editing no videos. That's why I bought this camera swapping software. Okay, wrap us up. Take us out.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And see if you can beat me to the first comment of this video.
And join us on the Discord.
See you there.